Here we go.
All right, there we go. Um, anyway, our next speaker today is Tonatiuh Melgarejo. He's professor of clinical sciences at Western University of Health Sciences in Pomona, California. He's a distinguished clinician scientist with over 30 years of experience in clinical, nutrition, small animal internal medicine, and translational research. He's internationally recognized for his work within One Health frameworks. Professor Melgarejo leads pioneering research into the safety and health outcomes of plant-based canine nutrition. And as principal investigator of the longest run clinical trial on canine plant-based nutrition to date, he utilized advanced diagnostics to demonstrate that healthy dogs can thrive on a plant-based diet. And as co-founder of the True One Medicine Initiative, he remains at the forefront of fostering science-based dialogue on ethical and sustainable nutrition for the future of companion animal health. The topic of his discussion today is advancing canine health through plant-based nutrition, cellular discoveries and clinical implications. And we're going to put oh, there it is. His slideshow is up there. And so welcome, Professor Melgarejo, and take it from here.
Thank you very much, Don and Bev and iVitality for the invitation. I cannot see myself, so I hope that you can see my screen and you can hear my voice.
We do see your screen. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We
yeah.
see your screen. We see you in
see
in a little box, and
all of those beautiful dogs are right up there.
Okay. That's wonderful. Okay, so let me just start with well, thanking you for the invitation. I'm very passionate about this topic because we love our animals, not just dogs and cats, but all our animals. And I have the privilege of being working for more than 37 years with different kinds of animals, from Komodo dragons to African spotted hyenas, vultures, jackals, whales. But the dogs are very close to my heart. And about 10, 12 years ago, I started seeing more and more chronic debilitating diseases in dogs. And the question was, what is happening? Because when I finished my residency in small animal internal medicine at Penn more than 20 years ago, we saw cases of cancer and obesity and arthritis, but it seems to be that it was just higher and higher as time passed by. So we started looking, and the question was, well, one of the environmental factors that is the most important one for humans and for dogs and cats is diet. So I started looking into plant-based diets, and anecdotally, I used plant-based diets a lot for inflammatory bowel disease in dogs and in cats with great results. But our question several years ago was like, okay, let's just get the foundation of the science in clinically healthy dogs before going that, because everything that I'm going to present is evidence-based. It's not an opinion, it's data, because here at the university is where knowledge needs to be born. We have the moral and professional responsibility of creating new knowledge, regardless of what we believe our philosophy or the sponsorship. Knowledge should be neutral, and this is the case for my presentation. So our good canine companions, of course, they rely on in very good nutrition. And nutrition in this broad aspect, it's lipids, carbohydrates, vitamins, and but then the question for us was, well, I have traveled, I have the privilege of traveling more than 46 different countries, and every single country that I go, I talk to pet owners and I talk to breeders, I talk to the general public, veterinarians, and I have seen that in some countries, they don't even eat meat or an omnivorous diets, the people, let alone the pets. So I started looking, okay, so what about um, plant-based diets? Because traditionally our mind assumed that the dog is a carnivore, so the dog must eat meat because the dog comes from the wolf. Therefore, wolves eat meat. But the question for us it was, what about canine plant-based nutrition? And then as soon as I started questioning that, people is like, what about, oh, plants, they have proteins? And what about the taurine and the carnitine? I mean, the people love to say that. And when you ask, what is L-carnitine? They don't even know the answer, but they love to say, okay, no, because meat has carnitine. What about the vitamins? And people love to say, okay, the omega 3, the omega 6. No, because I have heard that carbohydrates, they have too many sugars. So starting the quest for this, I found a very interesting fact that actually universities as prestigious as Harvard, the MIT, Uppsala University, they started looking at the dog and the wolf, but they started from a different point of view. They were not veterinarians interested in that. They wanted to see the whole genome analysis of dogs and wolves. And they did this collaboration generated metadata, 3 million genetic variants, 36 genomic regions, and they started just gathering and putting together, okay, there's 9 genes that are different between the dog and the wolf for brain function, for nervous system, from start digestion and absorption. So I'm going to try to explain in a slide what is the main difference between the dog and the wolf when it comes to the omnivore point of view, and it is related directly to domestication. So in this part that you see here, this is what happens in the intestinal lumen of the dog. Uh, and then this is the blood. So it's absorption after digestion. So when they get these dietary starches in the intestinal lumen, they're going to find the amylase that comes from the pancreas. And this amylase is going to digest these very complex carbohydrates into maltose. And then once this maltose reaches the tip of the villi of the intestine, there's some enzymes there that are going to digest that into the glucose. But the glucose, once it's released into the intestinal lumen, it needs transporters. It needs these two transporters to be able to be absorbed into the blood. So pretty much after that, you have the glucose absorption. So what's the main difference between the dog and the wolf? Well, they found actually that this particular enzyme has a huge difference in expression in the dog pancreata, 20-fold higher expression. It's a massive amount. It's not double or is 4 times more efficient. It's 28 higher the expression of just the amylase. And when it comes to the enzymes that are in the brush border of the enterocytes, they have a 12-fold higher expression. So if you see 28, 12-fold, the dog has adapted through the last 35,000 years to live with us, to be domesticated, to eat what we eat. And on top of that, there is a big difference between the wolf and the dog when it comes to this transporter of glucose, a single amino acid isoleucine in the wolf to valine. And this single amino acid change enhances significantly the glucose uptake. So just by looking into that, when people say, no, dogs cannot digest carbohydrates, quite on the contrary. And I'm not saying that, as I said, this is not my opinion. This is data, and this is data from really top-notch universities. So we have seen, and the paper concludes that these genetic adaptations have allowed the ancestors of modern dogs to thrive on a diet rich in starch. And this was crucial because the dogs started just following the humans. The humans pretty much adopted the dog, and it came the agricultural revolution, and the dog started eating less meat and more starches. So the question that we asked several years ago is, can clinically healthy companion dogs, just happy, healthy dogs, can be fed a commercial diet for a year? And we had to have a year because there are few studies that they have done where they have followed dogs for 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks. But as Dr. Knight mentioned, when we are looking into the cellular aging of dogs compared to humans, roughly 1 year of a dog it's equal to 7 years in humans. So just as a comparison, we are going to tell you we're going to take a group of humans and we're going to say you humans are going to eat this diet for 7 years. That is significant. That is not just a diet that you follow for 3 months because you want to go to a wedding and you want to really look good on this dress that is a little bit tight, or these pants that are a little bit tight. It is 7 years and it's compared to a year. And that's what we did. So this is the experimental study. So we are fortunate in vet schools that, for example, we have close to 450 students in the 4 years of vet school. 90% of these students, they have dogs or cats. So when I call for, okay, clinically healthy, dogs that are older than 1 year, we need this and we are going to do this. Students come because they're eager for knowledge and also because they are great owners. I don't want to call it owners because dogs are, to me, almost angelical. Dogs are just pure love and soul. So to say I own my dog, no, I don't think you own your dog. You're the guardian of your dog, and your responsibility is to care for this dog. Is not to own. You cannot own such a beautiful soul. That is an opinion, and that's a little bit deviating from the data. But anyway, so what we did is we transitioned in 1 week from a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet, and we have seen that because anecdotally in the past, when I have talked to the owners that they have chronic diarrhea of unknown origin, or they have atopies, or they have different chronic diseases, I said, okay, let's just transition in 4 weeks. But most of the guardians, they said, no, I mean, after a week, the dog was fine. And some of them, they don't even wait. They just switch dramatically from one day to another. And I have not seen really significant changes. So what we did is we transitioned on a week, and then every 3 months we brought these dogs for a physical examination, body weight, condition score. We did all the diagnostic workup, complete blood count, chemistry, serum chemistry, urinalysis, vitamin, amino acids, cardio biomarkers. We did absolutely everything, and then we also took samples from the fecal and urine microbiome because that plays a major role on that. So on total, we measured more than 3,000 parameters, biomarker data points, and we did this intentionally because we knew that in order to publish a study like that, the reviewers we're going to use a magnifying glass because the concept is the dog is a carnivore. What are you talking about? You cannot tell us that dogs are healthier and happier after 1 year of a plant-based nutrition. So we try to make our clinical research study bulletproof from the point of view of criticism, because the question was, what about vitamins? What about carnitine? What about calcium? What about, I mean, there's always room to criticize. So what we did is as I mentioned, we run all the complete blood count, serum chemistry, urinalysis. We measure thyroid hormone levels. And just these, at the very beginning, these 40 parameters, we collected close to 2,000 data points. And I'm not going to present that because there was no clinically significant changes from the baseline at 0 months when they transition to diet at the end point of 12 months. There was absolutely nothing that it was clinically concerning. It was unremarkable. It was normal. The typical question, what about taurine? What about carnitine? Well, these amino acids, these are not truly amino acids. They are amino acid-derived biomolecules, and they're important to the general health, including myocardial health. L-taurine, it's a combination of methionine and cysteine, And L-carnitine is a combination of lysine and methionine. And these are in red because this is what we call essential amino acids. The dogs cannot make these internally, so they need to be provided by the diet in order to be used and absorbed. And this is what we found. This is that 0 times 6 and 12 months. And if you see the L-taurine, this is the median that we have, and we have a medium here. This is the normal. This gray rectangle is the normal concentration. And we have at the very beginning, when they were eating a meat base, they were all, these were a little bit lower, but most of them, they were within normal limits. At 6 months, they cluster here, but at 12 months, actually, the L-carnitine was significantly different, the median, and all the dogs actually, they were above this normal range. The carnitine, they started here, but if you see here the carnitine, this is the median, and actually our dogs ended up with a higher carnitine concentration after 12 months. So this was significant from the point of view of physiology, even though statistically there was no difference between 0 and 12 months. And that is what we wanted to prove, that these dogs were eating a meat-based diet. After 12 months, there was no significant change. They remained at the same. Now, the typical vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, these are lipid-soluble vitamins. They're very important because the vitamin E participated in your healthy vision, growth, cell division. Vitamin D is core for the vitamin. This is a core vitamin for bone health, the metabolism between phosphorus and calcium. And what people don't sometimes realize is this is core also for the immune system. Because if you remember when COVID started just hitting, and these emergency rooms and hospitals were just filled with people with coronavirus, someone actually measured the vitamin D in these patients. And there's a paper that talks about more than 50% of these coronavirus positive people, they were deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is not typically wrong when you go to your doctor, even though more and more physicians now are looking at the vitamin D. The vitamin E is the active alpha tocopherol, and it is very important. And I just put here the half-life just to give you an idea. The vitamin A, when we started at 0 months, they were eating meat-based. 6 months and 12 months, they were significantly changed. The vitamin A actually went up using a plant-based diet, which it was a commercial available diet. The vitamin D was our one of the most surprising findings in our clinical feeding trial, because 7 out of 15 dogs, they were vitamin D insufficient. That means that the vitamin D level, they were lower than normal, but they were not clinical. After 6 months, only one of these dogs remained insufficient, and at 12 months, vitamin D was completely normal. And that was unheard, because it has not been reported ever that just a dietary intervention will actually come or stabilize the concentrations of vitamin D. The vitamin E was pretty much normal in all the cases. And as I mentioned, these are the normal, and this is the normal. So pretty much vitamin E is one of the vitamins that you can give a higher concentration for dogs, because their half-life is really short, just a few days, versus vitamin D and vitamin A. These half-life, they stay in the body of the dog or your body for weeks. And that's why it's not very concerning that at this point, vitamin D is higher. But as you see, there was not a significant change here, but this was significantly physiologically and statistically vitamin E and vitamin D. Now we looked at the water-soluble vitamins. Remember, we wanted to answer any question even before the paper was going to be sent to a peer-reviewed journal. What about the cobalamin and the folate? The cobalamin is essential for rapidly growing cells. And what is the classical example of rapidly growing cells? The enterocytes, the colonocytes, the cells that actually are covering the mucosa of the intestine. So if you don't have a good cobalamin concentration, you may have issues on that. And the folate, it's important for different vital functions. And then you see here the folate. We started with 6 dogs that were insufficient, and then we ended up with 3 dogs that were insufficient. But when it comes to the folate, actually, this is a marker that has been used for many decades, but it has not been shown to be quite precise because we don't have the sensitivity and specificity calculations for this folate. So clinically, it's useful, but it's not really that these dogs were sick or not. Simply, it is showing that 50% of our population actually improved the folate level. And the cobalamin here at 0 months, you see the meat base, and then you see the 12 months with a plant-based diet, the cobalamin remained stable. And those were very encouraging results for us because we wanted to show that vitamins and CBC and chemistry and urinalysis, all these markers, our dogs remain healthy. And no one has done that in the past, had done that in the past for a year. Now, there's a portion of my talk that I'm going to present at the very end because there's a group of researchers, clinical researchers in the States, that they say, no, be careful because plant-based diets or grain-free diets can cause cardiovascular disease, specifically dilated cardiomyopathy in dogs. So we wanted to see, okay, what happens? We are not going to just do an exploratory and look at the heart, but we can use systemic biomarkers, and we look at the cardiac troponin, which pretty much is what you go into the hospital, not you, but a patient goes to the hospital with severe chest pain. In addition of all the studies that they're going to do, they're going to measure the cardiac troponin because the troponin pretty much is acute myocardial injury. And if you have a cardiac infarct or a cardiac heart attack, your troponins are going to be really, really higher. So pretty much it's a smoke detector. It detects the heart muscle acute injury. This peptide, the terminal pronatriuretic peptide, pretty much this is a chronic situation. This peptide is a pressure gauge. It's how much your heart is being stretched. And then we look into that. So we look into the cardiac troponin. Surprisingly, it was actually this red is definitely abnormal. This blue is gray zone because we don't know, and the black is normal. And at the beginning, at 0 months, when they were eating a meat-based diet, these 3 dogs they had abnormal troponin I. Then at 6 months, of 4 dogs, they have abnormal troponin I. But at the end of the study, at 12 months, only 1 dog remained clinically healthy, but still with that, the NT-proBNP, you can see that 3 of these dogs, they were questionable, but at the very end, at 12 months, none of them show dilation of the heart. So that is actually contrary of what this particular group in the States is saying, that dogs that consume this kind of diets, they are prone to have dilated cardiomyopathy. So this is showing after a year in this particular population, healthy dogs, you put them in a plant-based diet for a year, and there is no biomarker that is showing dilation of the heart. We also look at the body weight and the condition score, and the body weight pretty much remain the same. Some of these dogs, they were, when we look at the body condition score, this was a dog that was close to be obese. The normal is pretty much 5. And this dog was in the obese range. And then after 12 months, this dog actually, the tendency was to just decrease the body weight. This study was not done, and it was not our intention to look for a diet that was going to create weight loss in our patients. This is just an observation. One of the most interesting things that we looked, and I know it's a lot of data, but we needed to do that because I can tell you it was not easy to publish this paper. Really top-notch journals in veterinary medicine, they said, no, no, we don't publish normals. We don't do this until we actually went to a very reputable journal, PLOS ONE, and we submitted that. And it took us several months to be dealing with the reviewers, but eventually it was published. The amino acids pretty much are the building blocks of your proteins. We are pretty much made of proteins. So these amino acids is not just the building block, is the regulators of gene expressions. They are precursors for hormone synthesis. And they are metabolites that are actually required for a lot of vital functions. They participate in maintenance, growth, reproduction, immunity. And in dogs, there are 10 essential amino acids. That means that these amino acids must come from the diet. Otherwise, the dog is going to be malnourished. And this lysine and methionine is the one that we are going to be looking closely. And I'm going to tell you why. One is because of the L-carnitine and the taurine, but also we are going to be just looking into that. So this is the essential amino acids. We measure all these essential. That means the dog cannot build this, cannot produce this. They must come from the diet. And you see here at 0 months, all dogs with meat-based diet, and then at 12 months. And if you see here, there's a tendency to be higher. The median is here, is higher. The isoleucine is about the same. It's about the same, the lysine. But in any of the cases, actually, there was a significant reduction of that. Quite on the contrary, we were looking at higher median, tryptophan, higher median, and the valine. So what is this chart showing us? That one of the main concerns is where is the protein coming if you're giving peas and lentils and beans to these poor dogs? Well, the protein is coming from the legumes. The protein is coming from the plant-based diet, and the dogs are able not only to digest it, but to absorb it and to remain clinically healthy. One of the observations, because we call the owners every month during 12 months, I said, how is your dog doing? Do you see any difference? And they were telling me, well, the feces are very easy to clean because they're not smushy, and we are very happy. But one thing that over and over we heard is, doctor, my dog is smiling. And it was the first time that I have heard that. And I said, well, it's a happy dog because he's eating a happy diet. So I'm glad to hear that. But this is very subjective. I don't have any parameters to measure I don't have any smiling scale to say the dog was smiling between 1 and 10, number 9, and then I can measure the muscle contraction. It's just difficult, but it kept coming every month. Every month, my dog is smiling. So we wanted to look what is the neurochemistry of happiness? Why people and dogs are happy? What are the hormones that participate on that? And then norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin, they play major roles on the neurochemistry of happiness. So I didn't measure these hormones. So what I am telling you is just an anecdotal observational situation where owners, the guardians were telling me my dog's smiling. So I went back to, okay, where these serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, where did they come from? So, and then if you look at phenylalanine, it went up. So phenylalanine, why is this relevant? Because phenylalanine converts into tyrosine, and tyrosine converts into norepinephrine and dopamine, two of the hormones that participate in the neurochemistry of happiness. As I said, we didn't measure this, but it was very consistent that the owners, the guardians were telling me, my dog is smiling. So I look into the tryptophan. Tryptophan has been studied many years in human medicine because it plays a major role in clinical depression. Because they have been even trying to give tryptophan to clinical depression patients. Why? Because the tryptophan is the motor molecule where the serotonin, the happiness molecule, comes from. So, and it was quite interesting that our dogs at zero time, the tryptophan was lower than the normal, and at 12 months, actually the median went up. So this is just an observation, but actually, I truly believe that my patients and the guardians were telling me my dog is smiling because dogs can be smiling, and it's not, a logo. I'm not selling any vegan diet or anything. It's just a very cool observation from our study. So the question that we asked at the very beginning, can clinically healthy companion dogs maintain good health after a year? But it's key to say when they were fed commercial, nutritionally complete plant-based diet. Dr. Knight mentioned that it has to be nutritionally complete, and I completely agree on that. And this is the QR situation square that you can scan it, and it will be taking you directly to the plus one paper where you can actually read it. But eventually, what we documented is that clinically healthy dogs that were fed a meat-based diet, they ended up clinically healthier on a plant-based diet. It didn't maintain the health status. Actually, one of the striking situations about the amino acids and also the vitamin D, these dogs were insufficient. Given enough time, several years, these dogs may go into deficiency, but just a dietary intervention was enough to actually make these dogs healthier. Now, when we were, this is a QR code for a short documentary that we have in Netflix. So if you scan it, you don't have to be subscribed to Netflix. It's a Tudum platform that Netflix has that you just click on that and you can, it's a short documentary. It's only 8 minutes, but actually it shows the interactions with the clients, with the guardians, with the patients. And we were very lucky because at one point I was doing this research clinical study, and I got a phone call in my office, and I said, and he said, "Hi, this is the Louis Sajoyos. I'm a director, cinematographer, and I'm actually in charge of doing a documentary for Netflix. And the documentary, it's We Are What We Eat. And right now that is in Netflix in the platform, in the paid platform. And I would like to see, is this real that dogs can actually live on a plant-based diet? And I said, this is what we are trying to prove, but evidence is showing strong data that actually that is the case. And he said, I need to go to your university. I need to go and film exactly what you're doing, talk to the clients, talk to the guardians, because if this is true, he himself is a plant-based diet person. We need to actually inform society. And he came for 6 days, 3 days first, and then 6 months later, when the study was done, he came and interviewed, and you can see the story of Netflix. Unfortunately, at the end, the We Are What We Eat, the twin study, the people that were in charge decided not to include the dogs to just make it cleaner for humans. So great, Luis Sajoyos, knowledgeable, humble. It's a great human being. He said, "Don't worry, Tona. I will create a short documentary for you so you can share it with your clients, your students, and the society in general, because what you're doing, it's great." So this is where you can see that. So what are the conclusions for our study? Is that this is the longest and most comprehensive clinical feeding trial on plant-based nutrition in dogs to date. So there was nothing reported before. Now, the plant-based nutrition is not just a logical alternative, but but also it will help these people that they have ethical issues and also they're concerned about the environment. Dr. Knight presented strong evidence that we will be able to help our planetary health if we actually transition from a meat-based diet to a plant-based diet. So, in other words, we don't have to kill an animal to feed an animal. I don't have to kill a turkey to feed my dog. So I felt horrible doing that, but now the alternative is there, and it's not only good for the other animals that are killed, it's good for the planet, and we showed for the first time that it's great for the dog. So between all the two previous conferences and our work, the existing evidence reflect that domestic dogs can not only live but thrive on canine plant-based nutrition. Now, the last few slides that I want to present is because there's concerns. Every time that I talk about a plant-based nutrition for dogs, even veterinarians, students, and society said, yes, but there's evidence that grain-free diets or plant-based diets, they can cause dilated cardiomyopathy. There's a group at Tufts University that says that. So I am going to present the evidence. It's not my opinion. I'm not against anyone. It's my responsibility to show you, and then you can decide what exactly you can conclude from that. So what is these concerns about the diet-induced dilated cardiomyopathy? I'm going to show you how a single clinical research group created this diet disease story without ever proving causation. The cardiology and clinical nutrition group at Tufts University, along with other collaborations across the US, they coined a very clever term, veg diets. It is boutique, exotic, grain-free diets. And they actually put together all these diets that include plant-based diet and small brand diets into a single risk category, and they built a self-referential literature around it. So the interesting thing is that I told my students, every time you see a paper, every time you hear a speaker in a conference, pay attention to the conflict of interest, because see who is paying for his research. This group has, they themselves disclosed funding from Nestle Purina, Hills, Royal Canin, Mars, Waltham, the very manufacturers whose grain-inclusive diets benefit commercially from this veg diet criticism. So what happens? The lead person here at Tufts, she published in a blog, not in a peer-reviewed literature, in a blog that has no peer review, no method selection, no statistical analysis, these anecdotes and case impressions, and they started speculation about pulses and exotic proteins. And as I mentioned, they coined these veg diets, and that actually created more than 180,000 page views in the first week. But this is the power of social media, because people don't have the time to read the papers, and sometimes they may not comprehend that. But even if they do, you don't have the time to do that. And this is the document that predates all the peer-reviewed publications that the same group have published in the topic. So what was interesting is that Dr. Freeman and colleagues used social media, veterinary surveys, conferences, and asked clinicians and owners to submit dilated cardiomyopathy cases to the FDA. But guess what? Don't submit all the cases, only when the affected dogs was eating a boutique exotic ingredient grain-free diets. No other or otherwise non-mainstream diets. That is not science in my from my point of view, because this is a document. This is methodologically biased. Is that I'm going to tell you, okay, to all my students, we have 4,000 students in this campus where I work. from the medical school, the veterinary school, the dental school, and I'm going to tell you're going to report cases of diabetes, but only the ones that are drinking this particular soft drink. I don't want you to report on any other thing. This is a methodological bias because I am excluding everything. And what it happens is that if you only count cases that fit your hypothesis, it will look great. Because then it's like, just report the cases on a boutique exotic ingredient free diet. Don't report the cases that are in a meat-based diet because that is not really what we want. So that actually prompted the FDA, the Center for Veterinary Medicine, to issue a statement. The FDA was investigating a potential link. Listen to that, potential link. But that phrasing is correlation, not causation. In order to prove causation, you need to say this causes this, and this is the scientific evidence because the scientific method works. We are not here to assume anything. At no point they actually declare that legumes, peas, or plant-based diets cause dilated cardiomyopathy. But guess what? People supported by this particular group, this investigation was treated as indictment by press and by clinicians. Look, the FDA is investigating because there's a lot of cases from that. And from that, it was not really good for these small companies. But the FDA never did not assert causation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you after 2018, this group kept publishing and publishing and publishing, and everything was just like big diets. And these are 4 papers. Let's just take a very quick look. Diet-associated dilated cardiomyopathy in dogs. What do we know? And then what do we know? That these are words from the authors. A cause and effect relationship has not been proven, and other factors may be equally or more important. However, they say diet-associated dilated cardiomyopathy. Next paper, echocardiographic phenotype of canine dilated cardiomyopathy differs from by diet type. What diets they are implying? But guess what? Then they said taurine deficiency was not identified in grain-free diets. Further investigation is an area that is needed. Investigation of diets in 2021, canine DCM using foodomics. Okay, they use foodomics. Guess what? Ingredient rank was based on the food label position. So if pits were listed first, then they created this artificial score like lentil score or legume score, and it was not quantitative data. These are the words from the people that published that. Prospective study of DCM in dogs eating non-traditional diets. Again, pushing into that. What did they say? None of the dogs had low plasma or whole blood taurine concentrations. Additional studies are needed. And that's why I'm telling you, the general public and a lot of veterinarians, they don't want to read the whole paper. But if you see the title coming from this particular renowned group, prospective study of DCM in dogs eating non-traditional diets, it's like, no, that's really bad. And they kept publishing and publishing. Healthy Labradors fed high legume diets, DCM-like changes. Wow. So if you eat lentils or high legumes, you're going to see changes. But what did they conclude at the very end? These changes occurred in healthy dogs over a relatively short time and were largely subclinical. So nothing happened. Further studies are needed. Echo and biomarkers of healthy non-traditional diets versus traditional diets. Again, whether these differences are clinically relevant or progress to DCM requires longitudinal studies that they have not published a single one. Echo and ECG in Irish Wolfhounds, high versus low pulse diets. What did they say? Causality cannot be established from this data, and prospective studies are needed. This is a pattern. This is like a very flashy title in a journal by these people, and then higher injury. This is one of the latest papers where they say that phospholipidosis, these diets can cause phospholipidosis. And what did they say? Additional research is needed before phospholipidosis can be considered a mechanism for diet-associated DCM. These are just some examples of, as an academician, you look at that, you look at the data. I cannot just say, because I am vegan, because I love steak, this is data, this is what it is there. So what the FDA did in December 23rd, 2022, almost 4 years ago, this investigation ended because the FDA said that these reports by themselves do not supply sufficient data to establish a causal relationship with the reported products, meaning the baked diets. The FDA does not intend to release further public updates until there is meaningful new scientific information to share. But guess what? People keep publishing. And remember, the FDA is investigating because they don't have the time. They don't do the homework to say the FDA stopped the investigation in 2022 because there was no, they did not supply sufficient data to establish a causal relationship. This is one of the latest papers that they have, and some of the clients come and said, no, but these diets can cause phospholipidosis, and that's a biomarker for drug-induced phospholipidosis is bad for the cells. And this is the only picture that this article published, and they talk about lamellar bodies are the morphological hallmark for phospholipidosis. Wow. Gold standard marker for phospholipidosis. But guess what? Read carefully. This dog was not part of the current study. And they just published it like, this is how it may look. We have all these dogs that they may have associated dilated cardiomyopathy, but as a scientific group with a lot of funding, we couldn't find a dog. So this dog was not part of the study. And then what did they conclude? Therefore, more investigation is needed before phospholipidosis can be considered a mechanism for a diet-associated dilated cardiomyopathy. But this is a pattern. You put a very scary title, and the vet students and the practitioners said, no, it's better to be safe. Well, if you look at the evidence, if you dissect the paper, that is not the case. So what we are doing is we are trying to publish as much as we can with cellular basis, with molecular basis, with science to say, guess what? This is a paper that we are going to upload into a preprint within the next 45 days. And we are actually, we look at the dietary pattern shapes, the plasma metabolome. We look at thousands of metabolites. And what we did is we asked people, please contact us. And it was very difficult. If your dog has been eating exclusively a plant-based diet for the last 2 years, 3 years, or longer, and we have clients that came and we look at just a cross-sectional analysis. We took echocardiography on these dogs just to make sure that they didn't have any dilated cardiomyopathy, and they did not. This is a different paper that we are going to publish, but looking into what they are saying, these phospholipids, phospholipidosis, it's really, really bad. We are going to actually show that dogs that were fed a plant-based diet, they have lower, not higher phospholipidosis associated lipids. And on the contrary, what we see is that in a plant-based diet causes phospholipidosis, we should see accumulation of sphingolipids and other lipids. And what we see here is that significantly elevated lipid species in all meat-based diet dogs. None was present in a plant-fed. And we see here these groups, sphingomyelins, ceramides, all these lipids, they were twofold, fourfold, up to 14 times higher the concentration in a meat-based dog. And this is the way our group is trying to not fight, because we don't fight with people. We like and we respect professionals. We are trying to balance this situation where they publish and publish and publish a lot of papers, but there is not a single piece of evidence that this causation And what we are seeing is that no, quite of the contrary. The meat-based diets, they actually produce more phospholipids in this particular scenario that plant-based diet. So what science actually shows is that the long-term plant-based feeding trial that we published in PLOS ONE is that actually made them healthier, which is the opposite of the vague narrative. It's like they produce dilated cardiomyopathy. And then let's just take a look of this. The epidemiology that they are present, it doesn't add up because in the States, it's calculated that we have 90 million companion dogs. Worldwide, we're talking about companion dogs, not dogs, the global population, but companion dogs, it is calculated close to 500 million. And guess what? Pulse-rich and plant-based diets are fed around in every continent, around the world. Yet, there's not a single peer-reviewed surveillance study from Asia, Europe, Latin America, Australia documented any legume or plant-based driven dilated cardiomyopathy. If you ask the European cardiologists about this, it's like, no, this is a USA phenomenon. That's really interesting. So if the proposed mechanism is real, the disease should be reported globally and reproducibly, and it is not. So we have instead of this, it's a US-centric reporting and saying, no, these diets cause that. And actually, it's that all the plant-based diets and all the small companies that don't belong to this massive amount of companies that they have the highest sales around the world. So one of the classic principles of epidemiology is that true causal relationships replicate across populations. Not a single paper is telling us the same dog, the same boxer that you feed a legume-rich or a pea-rich diet in the United States is developing dilated cardiomyopathy in Europe. So what are the three take-home messages from you? When you hear that, you say the FDA closed the investigation in December 23rd, 2022. There's nothing else. We are in the United States, so we followed that. So the FDA ended any routine updates. There is nothing. Number two, their own papers say it's not casual. The title says something, but with their own words from this author, they say it is not casual. And the latest paper that they have about phospholipidosis, to me, it's a short paper, and they show a nice picture, but it's an electronic microscopy from a dog that is not part of the study. And three, our data show the opposite. The landmark study that we published provides the longest running, most comprehensive evidence that healthy dogs can thrive without any animal-derived ingredients. Now, we wish we could do more, but there's one thing that is preventing us to do this because we don't take a single penny from any pet food company, meat-based or plant-based. And there are very few agencies and federal agencies that actually support this. So our clinical research group has received we don't have any conflict of interest. So we are actually doing this through donations and general support from philanthropic partners. We have intelligent philanthropists that come and say, okay, we'll help you. But just to give you an idea, this plant-based study that was done with all these thousands of biomarkers and everything, even though we use only 15 dogs, it cost about, at that point, $250,000. That's a lot to be asking the public to, okay, help us with that, because the question is, well, what about the university? What about this foundation, Morris Animal Foundation, or what about It's difficult because we are actually saying the opposite of what the general public believes and what some groups, some academic groups are saying. So we need to have support from the general public. When I moved to California about 8 years ago, Dr. Marty May approached me and he said, what you're doing is great. Let's do a fundraising. And she, along with other people in Los Angeles, organized a brunch. And I spoke about in that brunch, and we were able to collect through that jumpstart into probably 9 months, $187,000. Then we keep collecting the funding until we had the money to actually publish that study. So it is not difficult. So we need, if you're listening to me, we need your help because we don't have a lot of presence in the social media because as academicians, we tend to be away from that. But now I'm just telling you, we need to promote science, not opinions and not anecdotes, science. So what I'm telling you is that even our students and some of our practitioners and colleagues, veterinarians, they need to uh, unlearn what they learned that the dog is a carnivore. We need to relearn now that the dog is one of the most efficient omnivore species on Earth. And with this, I would like to conclude my presentation to leave some questions for some time for the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Melgarejo. We do have a few questions. One of them was, did you use the same plant-based dog food for the studies or a variety of already prepared plant-based dog foods?
We use a single dog food, plant-based dog food, but we were extremely careful. And I'm going to tell you the name just because it's part of this, the science. But we took that diet and then we spent $7,000 analyzing that diet. We didn't trust the company. We said, this is what you think you have. Let me see if the protein content is the same, if the vitamin D is actually vegan, as you said. So we spent a good amount of money testing that diet. And when we were sure, okay, it is what it is, then we placed the order and we bought probably half a ton of pet food from this company. And the company was B-Dog in San Francisco. I didn't take a penny and I asked them, please do not put my name on your webpage. Do not mention anything because if you want to put something on your webpage, put the documentary or the plus one, but I'm not going to endorse anything. I endorse planetary health. I endorse the dog and cat health. I endorse not killing and torturing animals. This is who I am. This is the diet that, but right now, fortunately, there's a lot of diets, plant-based diets that are coming in the States. They have approached me and we are doing some clinical research. But as I said to these companies, it's very difficult because you come very excited. I said, Dr. Melgarejo, I want to do that. We have some money for research. I cannot take a money because as the moment that I put, we receive funding from such and such plant-based diet, oh, you work for them because that's a classical, and the optics is really bad. So our money has to be completely clean and it needs to be from the general public or from a philanthropist to say, I believe in what you're doing, no strings attached, do whatever you have. But it's a plant-based diet, it's a B-Dog, even though we are working with 3 different companies now that are vegan.
Right. No, that's so important to state that. Susan and Wes have an interesting question. They said, are the more than 300 different dog breeds taken into consideration when examining their health and dietary needs?
Yeah, I'm working with actually another really cool project where the dog is going to show that actually is not the best friend of men. It's literally the key to cure Alzheimer's. And I need to show that actually the dogs are as diverse as humans. So I started looking into the breeds. And in the United States, there are more than 200 breeds that are recognized. In Europe, the canine associations in Europe, 350, but around the world is 500 different breeds that have been recognized. So that's a major task to do that because Cocker Spaniel is going to have different genes that a Chihuahua. You're right. In general, 99% of them, they're going to digest and they're going to have very, very similar, the same physiology. However, there are differences in breeds. If you have a collie, you know that the collies are extremely different to do everything. It's a great question, but we just need funding to keep doing that. And we are going to be looking at puppies. What happens if you take a 3-month-old puppy and then take it to a year and a half? Can plant-based diets actually be healthy for puppies? And that's a project that it requires when we look into that more than $1 million, and we bought this DEXA scan because we want to scan the puppies, the bone density, muscle density, fat density, all these things. It's great. We would like to work as many breeds as possible, but no money, no science.
Right. And here's a question. Is it largely one or a few journals that are publishing the questionable, quote, science? Is it the same journal editors and even manuscript reviewers that are letting these through?
It has been, no, it's not a single journal, but it has been typically 3 journals from vet medicine and a couple of journals that they have published out of vet medicine. And it is difficult because my group can actually write a rebuttal to that particular journal and say, okay, this is what you're saying is wrong because of this and this and this. You need to do this. But then immediately it's going to say, oh, you're saying that because you're working with a plant-based diet. It's not valid because what you're saying. So what I am trying is just to educate my students and the future generations. I said, be critical. Look at the funding. Look at who's doing that. Look at the conclusions. Don't read the title and the abstract because in the abstract it's going to say there's a concern about these diets. That doesn't mean anything. I mean, read at the very end when it says weakness and the strengths of the paper, and the invariable is going to say we don't have enough evidence, but we believe this may be the case.
Yeah. And Zoe says, could I please have your email? Would love to help with social media, etc. And yeah, so
definitely, I think if let me just share again. Hold on, but we can take other questions while I look for the presentation here, and then you can take a screenshot of that.
yeah, so Deb Thompson was just confirming your study did include various breeds and ages, right?
Yes. We included different breeds, and the paper says which breeds we included. Okay, here is it. So
Here we are. That's our clinical sciences.
Yes, and we will include the contact information in your what's sent out to you as well, so that everybody has that. And Dr. Melgarejo, you'll make your slides available for us to connect with the recordings as well. Is that?
yes, yeah. We I'm not going to send you all the slides because some of them have not been published, and I don't want. If I share it, then they're going to say it was published, and they will reject it. So I'm going to selectively tell you which ones, but the core is going to be there.
Yes, okay, understood. We don't want to do anything to jeopardize the legitimacy of the science. So.
No, as a matter of fact, we want to do this the opposite. In the human health field, we've had similar things with, the published results, Dr. Campbell and some others.
Yeah.
We want you to be able to get the truth out there.
And I know we need to wrap up, but I just wonder, could you comment briefly, because we talked about this when we were planning this, about the influence of pet food companies on universities, on veterinary training institutions and publications?
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in a bad situation.
No, but let me tell you. Let me start with this, and then Annika will come in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was doing this plant-based diet, I was called by one of the higher administrations in my university, and he said, "You need to stop doing what you're doing. You're putting your college in a bad spot. You're saying that dogs can be vegan, and it's difficult. So please stop." And fortunately, at that point, I was a full professor and I was tenured. And my answer was, I am creating new data. This is science. I train students. I publish papers. And I create the knowledge that we are going to use for the future to improve the well-being of our patients. So unless that is not part of my job description, I'm not going to stop. And it was very difficult. So you can see at the very beginning, my colleagues in my college, they are very prudent and neutral, but I'm sure that they think that at the beginning they say, "Oh, you're cute. You're studying vegan diets for dogs." It's the perception is not good. So you can extrapolate that. Uh, Pet food companies are extremely giving these major brands to all the colleges of vet medicine. So plant-based diet companies, they don't have the resources to do that. So they don't donate the scholarships. They don't give continuing education, free continuing education. So it's difficult to compete. My goal is just to publish as much scientific papers as possible and speak in every single conference, every single avenue that I have to present the data, because they can, this recording is going to be available. They can come and say, "Oh, you're talking bad." I'm not talking bad. I'm just presenting the data that you said, using the words that you said. There's no conclusion. We need to do more studies. We need prospective studies. So it's difficult. Beth, it's an uphill battle, but I'm half Mexican and half Spaniard, and my mom is a First Nation woman, and she's extremely tenacious. She's like, "Don't tell me no, because I will do it." And as Oscar Wilde said, when people disagree with me, I know I'm in the right track.
Thank you. And the reason I asked that is it's so reflective of what we see in the human health sphere too, you know, and so it was that was news to us, but there you go.
Look at the story of Neil Barnard, how he was attacked when he started being a MD and now the president of the physician committee. The story of the Dr. Campbell. I mean, it's just it's not easy to do this. But anyway, I'm going to just give the microphone to Annika. Annika?
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
want to thank you, Professor Melgarejo, for your just amazingly profound description of the sciences and how clear it is. Like you said, you don't engage in opinions. You just use the science, and the politics unfortunately come along with it, as there are vested economic interests and whatnot that are muddying the waters, so to speak. So yeah, we appreciate and then we'll come back after Annika.
At the end of the question and answer, definitely.
Yeah, okay. And then what we're going to do is stop the record and then start it again. Did you already? Oh, okay. So hold